Chapter 2, Section 1, Percent of a Number. The essential question: how can percent help you understand situations involving money? Real-world link. Pets. Some students are collecting money for a local pet shelter. The model shows that they have raised 60% of their $2,000 goal or $1,200. So the percentage: 100% written as a decimal is 1, and the fraction is 5 out of 5, or 1. 80% is written as 80 divided by 100. Oops, let me restart that. 80% written as a decimal is 80 hundredths. And reading that as a fraction is 80 divided by 100, which is reduced down to 8 tenths, which can be further reduced down to 4 fifths. I'm circling the 4 fifths, knowing that that's the simplest form. 60% as a decimal is 60 hundredths. As a fraction, you write that down as 60 hundredths, which is reduced down to 6 tenths, which is reduced down to 3 fifths. 40% is 40 hundredths, which is reduced down to 40 divided by 100, which is 4 tenths, and further reduced to 2 fifths. 20% is 20 hundredths, which is written as 20 divided by 100, reduced down to 2 tenths, which is further reduced to 1 fifth. And 0% is written as 0 as a decimal, and the fraction is 0, or 0 fifths. So we filled in the decimal and fractional equivalents of each of the percents shown in the model. So number 2, use the model to write 2 multiplication sentences that are equivalent to 60% of 2,000, which is 1,200. So 60%, I'm just going to go in and highlight that entire row. So we could also write that as 60 hundredths of 2,000, so that's times 2,000. 2,000 equals 1,200. Well, 60% or 60 hundredths as a fraction is 3 fifths times 2,000, which equals 1,200. Those are equivalent equations. Find the percent of a number. To find the percent of a number, such as 60% of 2,000, you can use either of the following methods. 1 is write the percent as a fraction and then multiply. 2 is to write the percent as a decimal and then multiply. So let's go with example number 1. Find 5% of 300 by writing the percent as a fraction. So we're going to write 5% as 5 hundredths. So to show the work, 5% is the same thing as 5 out of 100. So that's 5% out of 100%. You could reduce that down to 1/20th. So 5% of 300. So I'm going to take 5 hundredths times 300 divided by 1. Well, you can multiply across, but I do like to cross-reduce whenever possible, or cross-simplify. I like to make the numbers as simplified as possible whenever I can. So 100 divided by 100 is 1. 300 divided by 100 is 3. So I'm going to rewrite my fractions. 5 divided by 1 times 3 divided by 1. That equals 5 times 3 divided by 1 times 1, which is 15 divided by 1, which is 15. That means 5% of 300 is 15. So it does show the work. It has the explanation off to the right as well in blue, but I wound up doing the work to the left in black just to show. Number 2, find 25% of 180 by writing the percent as a decimal. Well, 25% as a decimal is 0 and 25 hundredths. So 0 and 25 hundredths of 180. Well, in order to solve this, I'm going to write this as a multiplication problem. 180 times 0 and 25 hundredths. 0 times 5 is 0. 5 times 8 is 40. write the 4 down, carry the 5. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 4 is 9. 0 is my placeholder. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 8 is 16. Here's the 6. Carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. And I'm going to add these. 44,500. Well, I have two numbers that are to the right of the decimal place right here. So that means that I need to have two numbers to the right of the decimal place in my answer. So that means my final answer is 45, which is the same thing as their work. Got it? Well, we're going to go ahead and find out. Letter A. I'm going to show my work over on the left, so in that way I have enough space. I have 40% of 70. So I'm going to take 40 hundredths of 70 and divide that by 1. Well, I'm going to do some cross reducing. 170, I can take a 10 out of both of them. So that leaves me with a 7 in the numerator, 10 in the denominator. That becomes 40 times 7 divided by 10 times 1. 40 times 7 is going to be 280 divided by 10 times 1, which is 10. I'm going to divide the numerator and denominator by 10. That leaves me with 28 and 1. So that leaves me with 20 divided by 1, which equals 28. So letter A is 28. Letter B. I'm going to show the work off to the side over here. 15% of 100. Well, I could do 15 divided by 100 times 100 divided by 1. So I'm going to cross reduce. I can take 100 out of 100, and that gives you 1. 100 divided by 100 gives me 1. So I have 15 divided by 1 times 1 divided by 1. My numerator is 15 times 1 divided by my denominator is 1 times 1. 15 divided by 1 equals 15. So letter B, the answer is 15. Letter C, 55% of 160. Well, this time I'm going to take 160 and I'm going to multiply it by 55 hundredths. You could go ahead and make it into a fraction, just like I did for A and B, but I am going to show the decimal version as well. 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 6 is 30, 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. Here's my placeholder. 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 6 is 30, 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. I'm going to add all of this. 8,800. Well, I have two numbers that are to the right of the decimal, so that means I need two numbers to the right. My answer is 88. Letter D, 75% of 280. So I'm going to take 280 times 75 hundredths. 0, here's 8 times 5 is 40, 5 times 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14, 0 for the placeholder, 7 times 0 is 0, 7 times 8 is 56, so I carry the 5, 7 times 2 is 14, plus 5 is 19, add them all together, oops, 21,000, 21,000. There are two numbers to the right of the decimal, so that means I need two numbers to the right of the decimal. That gives me an answer of 210. Continuing. Use percents greater than 100%. Percents that are greater than 100% can be written as an improper fraction, mixed number, or decimals greater than 1. So 150% equals 150 divided by 100, which is the same thing as saying 3 halves, or 1 1/2, or 1 5/10. So example 3, we're going to find 120% of 75 by writing the percent as a fraction. So I'm going to take 120% and divide that by 1. Divide it by 100, because 120% out of 100% of 75. So I'm going to divide that by 1. So first I'm going to start by reducing my fraction on the left. I'm going to divide that by 10, which leaves me with 12 and 10. 12 tenths times 75 divided by 100. Well, I can cross-reduce this and take out a 5. Left with a 2 and left with a 15. This then leaves me with 12 halves times 15 divided by 1. I can still reduce my first fraction to 6 divided by 1 times 15 divided by 1. 6 times 15 divided by 1 times 1. That equals 90 divided by 1, so my answer is going to be 90. Number 4, find 150% of 28 by writing the percent as a decimal. So 150% of 28. Well, that's 1 and 5, or what is, 1 and 5 tenths times 28. So 28 times 1 and 5 tenths. 8 times 5 is 40. 5 times 2 is 10 plus 4 is 14. Have my 0 placeholder. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. I'm going to add these together. 420. Well, this time I have one number to the right of the decimal, so I need one number to the right. My answer is going to be 42, which is what they have. So you got it? Let's try these 2 problems to find out. We're going to find 150% of 20. So 150 divided by 100 times 20 divided by 1. So I'm going to do some cross-reducing. 20 can go into 20 once, 20 can go into 100 5 times. So that leaves me with 150 divided by 5 times 1 divided by 1. So I'm going to multiply my numerators, which is 150, divided by my denominators of 5. And I can still reduce this by 5. Divide by 5, divide by 5. 150 divided by 5 gives me 30. 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. So the answer for letter E is 30. Let's try letter F. We're going to do 1 and 6 tenths times 35. So 35 times 1 and 6 tenths. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 3 is 18. Plus 3 is 21. Put my placeholder of a 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 3 is 3. And add these up. 560. I have one number that is to the right of my decimal point. So I need one number to the right. That makes my answer 56. Continuing. Example 5. Refer to the graph. If 275 students took the survey, how many can be expected to have 3 televisions each in their houses? Well, 3 televisions each. That's going to be 23%. And there's 275 students that were surveyed. So 275, or I'm sorry, it's 23% of 275 students. So 23 out of 100, you could do it that way. I'm going to choose to do the decimal version. So I'm going to take 275 and multiply it by 23 hundredths. 5 times 3 is 15. 3 times 7 is 21, plus 1 is 22. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 0 is placeholder. 5 times 2 is 10. carry the 1. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. Carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. I'm going to add this together. 6,325. I have to go back. I have 2 numbers to the right of my decimal, so I need 2 numbers to the right of my decimal. So that gives me 63 and 25 hundredths. Well, you can't have a quarter of a person, so we're going to say this is approximately 63 students. So you got it? Let's try this last problem to find out. Letter G. Mr. Sudamak earned a 4% commission on the sale of a hot tub that cost $3,755. How much did he earn? Well, this is going to be 4% of $3,755. So I'm going to take $3,755 and I'm going to multiply it by 4 hundredths. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 5 is 20 plus 2 is 22. 4 times 7 is 28 plus 2 is 30. 4 times 3 is 12 plus 3 is 15. There are 2 numbers to the right of my decimal point, so I need 2 numbers to the right of my decimal point. So that means that Mr. Sudamak earned $150.20 in commissions.